So if you're planning to stalk today's guest on LinkedIn after this episode, I'm sure the first thing that you'll notice is, you know what, this guy is very multi-talented. Or maybe that's the second thing. The first thing you'll notice is his Denzel Washington smile. But so if you do go on his profile, you'll notice that he's a chartered accountant. I mean, that's the first thing. I mean, if anybody says that they're a chartered accountant, that's already an achievement by itself. An entrepreneur, I mean, to take that leap of faith also requires a different type of human. And then not forgetting that he's an author as well. I mean, his book, The First Generation Founder, launched recently, I think 3 weeks ago, and is the #1 bestseller in a few regions in Johannesburg as well. So or you can go to your nearest store to grab your copy, or you do sell it online as well. Right?
Yes, Take a Lot, yeah.
And Take a Lot as well. So just Google it, First Generation Founder, and you can search. The author's name is Raymond Ledwaba. Mr. Raymond, did I get that?
Yes, yes, you got it right, Rykiel.
Okay, cool, man. So yeah, welcome Raymond to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man. So when I first came across your profile, I think first thing that struck out was your name, Raymond, and it reminded me of that TV show, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
And I've seen a few of your articles and your posts, and I know you've got a history in corporate, and it's mentioned that, you know what, people, when you come up to people at your previous workplace, they always told you that corporate is not for you. They've told you that, you know what, you belong somewhere else. You've got that energy, you've got that vibe about you. So, can you tell me, you know what actually got you into corporate in the first place?
Yeah, so I grew up in a family where there were no entrepreneurs, #1, right? I title my book The First Generation Founder because I am a first generation founder. So I don't come from a family with a history of, you know, uncles, parents, aunts who have started businesses, and growing up I would go and work in those businesses and see how they operate. I come from a family where my father worked for one company for 40 years, Sporenet, now Transnet, and his view about life, and my mother was a teacher and but struggled to find teaching jobs. So she would do these odd sort of like, you know, she would sell secondhand clothes, or she would sell like snacks for high school students, but it was very survivalist. She didn't hire anyone, she didn't have any systems, and it was very on and off, right? It wasn't like very sustainable because she was looking for work, and when she finds work, she would stop, right? So my father, because he had worked for this one company all of his life, his view about life was that you have to go to school and you have to find a job. And once you find the job, you have to climb the corporate ladder and hope for the best, right? And if you have a good job that pays well, you're fine. What more do you want in life? So that's the background that I come from. And obviously when you come from a background like that, you also go to school, because my father emphasized the importance of education. And then I studied accounting, became a chartered accountant. Fortunately, I was lucky to get a bursary in matric with Metropolitan. And Metropolitan paid for 3 years of my schooling until I got a degree. Once I got a degree, they said you have to come and work, but I wanted to get my honors degree. So I had 1 more year of studies I needed to do that they weren't willing to pay for. And then PwC stepped in for that year and gave me a bursary to do my honors year. So I had this payback period of 6 years, 3 years that I owed Metropolitan, and 3 years that I owed PwC, because PwC paid for 1 year, but I needed to do articles for 3 years. Articles is 3 years. In those 3 years, you write 2 exams. So it's quite challenging. I did my 3 years at PwC, qualified as a chartered accountant. Then I had to go work at Metropolitan. But Metropolitan had merged with Momentum in that year. So with every merger, there's redundancies. So they called me and they said, hey, look, we know we promised you a job, but we can't give you a job right now. So my contract was void, which was quite good for me at the time because I didn't really want to go work in Cape Town. Not necessarily that I didn't want to work for Metropolitan, but they wanted me to go work in Cape Town. And during that time, my mother was sick. So my mother had a stroke when I was 15 years old, and I was in grade 10. And she lived with this condition for 15 years of her life until she passed away in 2015. So I wanted to be home, right? So when Metropolitan said they can't give me an offer in Cape Town, I was quite pleased because then I got to be, it kind of worked out. So that's how I ended up in corporate. It wasn't really by, choice per se, it was circumstance, but it was also a good thing. I mean, I think a lot of people who are young want to work, right? You want to be self-sustainable. You want to provide for your family and support your siblings and, cousins and so forth. So one route in the country that everybody kind of knows is go look for a job. So that's what I did.
Okay. And then you mentioned your dad. You said you worked at 40 years.
He had a watch. He got the gold watch for long service.
Oh, okay.
I remember that watch.
No, man. It actually reminded me of, I think I was watching a comedian where he said, he was talking about his dad. And he mentioned that you must do the job that you hate to get the money to do the things that you love. So I think that was probably his mindset. You know what? You have to do something in life to get your paycheck. And then you can move into something that you eventually love, but you still have to have some sort of stability in your life. And it reminds me of another quote of, if you work for a corporate, you're just one paycheck away from poverty.
And that's something I also realized at some point that, someone said, it hit me quite hard actually. It was this gentleman called Vuyo Jack. He had started a program called Reality-Based Entrepreneurship. And it's quite interesting how my journey has actually unfolded post that program, right? Because he had invited people in corporates and some, entrepreneurs, and he wanted to share a real perspective of what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Not a romanticized version, not a version that rags to riches type of story, what we see on TV and all of that. And one of the things he said was that, if you are in corporate, because I remember he asked this question, he said, how many of us here have savings for 1 month? So if we were retrenched right now, we can survive 1 month. A couple of people raised their hands. And then he said, 3 months. A few people raised their hands, and he said 6 months. I don't think anyone raised their hands, right? And he said, you see, guys, we are essentially sophisticated beggars, right? That's
a good term.
Yeah, sophisticated beggars. And I was like, what? I'm not a beggar, But then afterwards, you kind of reflect on that and you realize that, yeah, I have this awesome job. It paid me very well. When I was in corporate, I earned good money. And because I was earning good money, lifestyle creep kind of comes in. You obviously want to have good, nice things. I'm not very materialistic, so I didn't buy a flashy car. I lived at home because my mother was sick, right?
Yeah.
But I traveled a lot. Right? And
locally or overseas?
Internationally, locally. I've got 2 full passports.
Okay.
My 3rd passport just expired, so now I'm actually on a 4th passport. I've really traveled. I've traveled a lot. Okay. And yeah, I think I was blowing my money on travel, which is a good thing because it's you're getting experiences. I wasn't spending on things, but that perspective that I was a sophisticated beggar hit me quite hard because I realized, oh man, if I lose my job, how long do I have to survive? how long can I survive on my own? So it's quite a drug, a salary, you know. It's quite an addictive drug, because you design your whole life around this one payment that you think it's guaranteed it's gonna come. And for most people, I mean, I think that's not a bad thing when it does come. It's a problem when it stops and you are now reliant on it, right? And you've taken all these debts, and this lifestyle that you lead depends on that salary to pay back and service this debt. So I've been in that situation. And yeah, I didn't want to be in that situation for the rest of my life.
No, I can see that. And I mean, from that mindset, when that sophisticated beggar term hits you, and I know you mentioned that you're well traveled now, so I think when you have those types of different experiences, you open your mind up to different opportunities. Obviously, after traveling, you see how different cultures operate, how different people make a living in their life. So I know now that you've got a company, of many companies. I'm not sure. You tell me how many companies you have, but one of them is ITTHYNK. So when you first think about that name, it's kind of like sounds like a learning and development thing around IT.
Sure.
So, but can you tell us more about ITTHYNK?
Yeah. So
how it started.
So ITTHYNK was started by my brother, Jeffrey, and a friend of his, Gideon. They started the company in 2005. And essentially it started, you're right, it started as a training business.
Okay.
There were lots of opportunities for people to learn about various types of technologies, and they happen to be good at those technologies, and they happen to be good at teaching people. Okay. So they would get lots of opportunities in training, and one day they trained this organization on a platform called CRM, Customer Relationships Management, from Microsoft. This company was implementing the tool in their organization, and they needed their staff to understand it, right? Another consulting company was implementing the solution. So they sent their team there. And when the team got there, they were like, you guys seem to understand this tool better than the company that's currently implementing it for us.
Sure.
Right? Because the way you are explaining it to us and how you guys are showing us how it works, those guys are not doing, we think now they're not even doing a good job. Can you guys come in and advise us and sit in on a meeting with us as part of our team with this consulting company and tell us if they're actually telling us the truth or not, right? And obviously it was a big consulting company, and they walked into the meeting.
It would have been ironic if it was PwC, the one that gave you the... No,
it wasn't PwC. It wasn't PwC, but I can't say the name of it. But it's one of the big, like, tech consultancies and advisory firms. And so they sat with this client, and I mean, this company is also a big organization. And they sat in the meeting, and the advice wasn't really great. And so my brother and Gideon were able to advise the client well. And the client said, hey guys, I think we like you guys. There's this other opportunity for you guys to implement SharePoint. Can you guys help us with that? And so that's how our business essentially grew from just being a training company to a consulting company. And so they implemented SharePoint, and from there on, we went on to implement various other solutions. And now we've got an R&D center where we are looking at how we can develop our own platforms and sell our own platforms. So that's ITTHYNK Smart Solutions. I didn't start it. I came into it in 2017 after I'd spent time at PwC and spent time at APSA. And my brother would call me all the like all the time. You know, he's a software developer.
Yeah.
These guys are techies. And they would say to me, look, our business is starting to grow. We need someone with business experience. Can you please come and join us?
Yeah.
At the time, though, every month, and these are the challenges of small businesses, right? At the time, they struggled with cash flow management. So they would do work, they would invoice the client, they would not follow up on invoices, or the client would pay them very late. And so they've got staff and they don't have cash flow, right?
Yeah.
So salary time comes, they need to pay salaries. They know that the client will pay them later. And so they would borrow money. So my brother would call me every month and say, how much money do you have? And that's how the conversation would start. How much money do you have? I need all of it. Every cent that you have, can you borrow it to me? I'll pay it back after 2 weeks. He's an older brother. He's 6 years older than me. So I would lend him as much money as I can. Sometimes I would be so scared to give him everything because I was like, hey, I need some, you know, for transport and stuff.
You're a good younger brother.
Yeah, but I would give him the money, and then sure, he would pay it back. And that trend happened for a while. During that time, he was asking me to come join him. I was like, are you mad? I'm funding your business right now with my little money that I have. And you want me to come join this business? At the time I was working at APSA, I had a really great job. I was traveling the continent. I was doing interesting work in finance and technology. So we were implementing a trading system, and I was learning technology and learning, you know, finance and bringing them together. So it was quite a nice job, but then the project came to an end. So I stopped traveling and I would be coming to Sandton every day. Traffic was horrific from Soweto. So I was getting frustrated with that. And one day my brother called me, said, Ray, please come see us. I went to their office and their pitch was quite simple. They said, dude, we're making very stupid mistakes now. Mistakes in contracts. We're getting into contracts that we shouldn't. It's because we really don't know. We think we need your help. If you come, we think we won't make those mistakes. Can you join us? The very next day I went to work and I resigned.
Sure.
So I didn't really think about this, you know, a lot. And then I joined.
For you.
Yeah, and I joined my brother. And for the first year, immediately after I joined my brother in the business, I think a month into it, we lost the biggest client that we had, right? And so for a full year, it was really, really tough because there was no money coming in.
No cash flow.
Yeah, I cashed out my pension that I built up over 10 years. And essentially, I used all of those savings. And I stuck it out. And now it's 8 years into the journey. I've founded another business called ITTHYNK Gaming, which is a video game development business. We started it in 2021 during the pandemic. We saw a gap to develop African-inspired video games because, you know, if you look at the video gaming industry, it's the biggest entertainment medium on earth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The gaming industry is bigger than the film industry, the music industry combined. You can even add the top 5 European soccer leagues and the NFL. Combine all those revenues, they don't surpass the video games industry.
Sure. Yeah.
But there is a lack of African-inspired stories and games because the industry on the African continent, although we have large number of players, it's highly consumer focused. We don't have a large number of producers and companies making games, right? So we've got this huge potential on the continent, a huge youth population, high internet penetration, right? Mobile device, everybody kind of has a mobile device now. But we don't have games made by locals for a local market, even an international market. So that's the gap that we saw. and we're building games now. It's quite a challenging space, highly competitive. But if you get one hit, it kind of pays for everything. That's our thinking. That's our theory. We are yet to prove it.
No, definitely. I remember the Angry Birds story where I think it was the 52nd or 53rd try.
Yeah, 60. I heard it's 63rd try.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Rovio.
Rovio, yeah.
Rovio, yeah. Rovio. I went to Finland this one time. Rovio is a Finnish company. And one of the people who advised or worked at Rovio was giving a talk and told us that story that they kind of stumbled on Angry Birds being a hit, and how it happened was that they had built this prototype and they had gone on holiday, right?
Yeah.
For like December, Christmas holidays. And so one of the developers gave it to his mom to just test it. Oh, there's doggies here.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the developers gave the prototype to his mom.
Okay.
Because, you know, when you're in the gaming space also, parents don't understand what the hell it is you do.
Yeah, true.
Right? So I suppose this developer wanted to show his mom what he's been working on. And the mom was playing Angry Birds, and throughout the weekend she couldn't put it down. And that's when he was like, I think we're onto something. This thing might be a bit addictive, right? And the rest is history. But that moment, that weekend of him witnessing his mom like playing Angry Birds and not putting it down, for them or for him, it was like, oh, I think this is something, we need to push this prototype even further.
Yeah.
And that was their 63rd attempt, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting I'd say principle when you are starting a business. I mean, you get so engrossed in, is this thing going to actually work? And you don't really involve people. You know what, Mom, try it out. See if it actually works. So maybe your friends or your closest thing.
100%. Get feedback. I mean, that's what we are doing now in our gaming business. We build lots of prototypes.
Yeah.
Initially, we fell into the trap of wanting to make a big game, a blockbuster game. We were so passionate, and we still are passionate about the story. Kamani, right? That's the name of the game that we wanna make. The thing we didn't really think about was to make this massive game. We didn't realize that we don't actually have the resources, all the capabilities needed, the skills needed to really make that big game. So we pumped some cash into it, and a year later we started putting it out there, showing people, and yeah, I think we learned that we need, you know, I remember our studio head, he went to Germany to exhibit the game at Gamescom. I went with him. And one guy said, guys, you need to make a corner of a corner of a corner of a corner of the game first.
Okay.
Before you make the whole house. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Make a small piece of the game, put it out there, get feedback. See if people are interested in it. See if people find it fun. We, I think, had like made a double story, like mansion, right? And we realized that we went about it the wrong way. So now our focus, but you learn, right? That's the process of building any business, is that you have to do it. You have to try. You have to, no matter what people say, you just gotta do it, because in doing it, then you learn and you get better, because then you don't make the same mistakes. So now we're making a corner of a corner of a corner of a corner of the building, putting it out there and seeing if people find it interesting, or it's still a bit tricky and challenging to kind of like get the feedback that we need and make sense of the feedback. So now that's what we're trying to do now, to figure out, you know, how do you get legit feedback? Because sometimes we feel like you can show it to your friends sometimes your friends,
They'll be a bit biased.
they're very biased, right? They want to say, oh, this is really cool, because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But you need like the real player feedback, someone who doesn't even know you, doesn't care about your feelings, and they break it to you straight. This is a rubbish game. Or if they say, this is really cool, it's fun, because that's what you want to hear. It's fun.
Because fun is addictive.
Because fun is addictive. I can't put it down. And we compete with so many mediums today, right? I was doing a pitch once with MultiChoice. I was part of the MultiChoice Accelerator. And we were pitching this gaming business. And they asked me, how are we going to compete with TikTok? I was like, what? It's like, yeah, I mean, you're in the attention economy. So how are you going to get people to stop being on TikTok to play your game? It was a question I'd never thought about before, you know? But that just shows how difficult the space is, right? Because there's so much content and there's only 24 hours in a day. So to get people to come to your content, it has to be fun. That's the key metric. Is this thing fun? If it's not fun, you need to move on. You need to drop it and do something else, right? So the sooner you can get that feedback from credible sources, not from people that are just afraid to hurt your feelings, the better.
No, 100%. And I think, is it the game, so you mentioned it's called Kamani. Is it in sort of public beta phase now that you can?
Yeah, so we actually have put it out on itch.io. So all of our prototypes are on itch.io. So the name of our business is ITTHYNK Gaming, but we've set up a different business within ITTHYNK Gaming called Disputed People. So Disputed People Studio is our IP developer. So that's where we make sort of like our R&D unit, where we make products. And then ITTHYNK Gaming has now become an ecosystem developer because we've realized that in South Africa and on the African continent, the gaming industry is essentially in its infancy. And so we don't have a strong ecosystem. And what I mean by that is, if someone wants to study gaming, you either have to be self-taught or you go to a university, but there aren't many universities that offer game development.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, so from an education point of view, there's gaps. But for those that manage to have a skill, what you need to do after that, you obviously either go work for someone, so you have to find studios to work for, or you build your own studio. Those are the only two options. Yeah. There aren't many studios in the country and on the continent that can offer a lot of people employment, right? So many people end up building their own studios. When you build your own studio, you make lots of mistakes. Rovio succeeded on their 63rd attempt. 63rd, right?
You could have easily given up after the third or fourth one.
And to not give up, there's some safety nets that founders need, right? You need to know that you are not suddenly going to go hungry, because the moment you are fearful and you're worried about getting hungry, you're going to look for other things that are going to feed you. So you're going to drop this thing because you're not going to survive. So you're going to look for other jobs. You need to pay rent, right? You need to essentially survive. So right now in South Africa and on the continent, a lot of game developers have this worry of, how do I survive how do I get to my 63rd attempt? So without funding, it's difficult. Without the ability to make revenue, it's hard. So a lot of companies just give up after a while. So we are trying to now establish or help contribute towards developing an ecosystem So what we've done as ITTHYNK Gaming is we've put together a couple of organizations. We formed a consortium. That consortium is called Afrigames Consortium.
Okay.
We've pooled funding together and we went to government. We went to National Treasury and said, we've seen you've got a call out for a grant called the Jobs Fund grant, and we want to apply for it. We've raised our own funding. Can you match us? So the Jobs Fund grant is a competitive funding application. And it's obviously about how many jobs we can create.
Okay.
But you must have your own funding to be able to be matched. And if you're a private company, they match you 1 for 1. So for every R1 that you put in, they give you a R1 grant, which is fantastic. It's a 2-year project. So we've established the Afrigames Consortium. We are the lead applicants and the project managers. So we've kind of separated our business now as into 2 parts. One part is this ecosystem development aspect, which entails project management, consulting, financial management, and financial advisory. We're working now on developing a social impact bond for the gaming industry, because we've got specific skill sets in our business where we understand the creative side and the finance side. I'm a chartered accountant, so we're trying to bring these 2 worlds together. But that project is still in its infancy, very, very early stages. But if we get it right, we think it's going to make a huge impact in ensuring that there will be fit-for-purpose financial instruments that understand and cater for this creative economy, right? Starting with gaming, and we think if it can win with gaming, surely there are use cases in animation and film and music and all these other
creative. Yeah. That's a big gap you mentioned. I think it's, being a creative myself, don't fully understand the financial sort of sphere, and I'm not sure he can speak for the financial people, but to move into the creative space, they don't fully understand it as well. So it's a definite gap in the market.
100%. I think there is a lot of desire to support the industry across government, across banks, development finance institutions, venture capital perhaps, but certainly the understanding of the value chain and how the creative economy works. I think a lot of financiers look at it and assume it would work just like any other industry. And there's nuance in this space that you have to design for. Otherwise, what you're doing might not work. You might not get your financial return, or you might expect your financial return way too early in the process, just because other businesses and other industries are able to return that money quicker. The creative space, things I think take longer. To make a product takes long, right? Think of a movie. To then market the product takes even longer, right? So you kind of wait long periods of time for you to get your money back. But the beauty about products in this creative space is that unlike other types of assets, there's no depreciation here, right? So assets I've just written a book. My book might not do well in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Something might happen in 10 years' time, depending on my maybe career trajectory. I might find myself in a different space in 10 years' time, and this book might sell in 10 years' time, right?
That's true.
So if you are funding products in this space, you need to understand that. You need to understand that I can't build a financial model to value assets in the creative space the same way I would value a factory. Because assets in a factory depreciate over time. The value of the machine that is being used becomes less and less and less as you use it, right?
Yeah.
My book, on the other hand, which is intellectual property, doesn't do that. In fact, it might get more valuable over time.
100%.
So if financial models and people who work in this space understand that assets depreciate over time, they're going to look at our creative assets just like any other asset. And that's a big mistake, because I think that's not how they should look at it.
They come from a transactional background, unfortunately, so that's how they look at it. But I think another way to put it is, all of these artists, Van Gogh, Rembrandt, after they die, you can see the value of the things that they have created.
100%.
It's definitely gone up, and I think it's the reason for that is...
But I don't want my book to be a hit when I die. I want it to be a hit when I'm alive, right? And I think that's the challenge with artists, is that, and I think it's an injustice to some degree, right? It's because most artists don't get their flowers whilst they're alive. They have to die.
I think
for their assets to become valuable.
I think we take it for granted because they're still alive. We know that they're still going to create and put something out. But when they die, it's going to definitely increase and elevate because of they can't create anything anymore. They're gone. So I think that's some maybe subconscious thing that people think about and why it kind of increases in value. But yeah, I definitely want your book to be successful. Why are you still alive?
That's the hope.
Yeah. So yeah, you touched about obviously going into corporate, starting your own business. Now let's talk a bit more about the book. Actually, so was it your idea to write the book, or how did you come about, let me share my story with the whole world?
Sure. So it wasn't really my idea to write a book. I was approached to write a book, which is, I'm learning now, it's quite a unique position to be in. It doesn't really happen a lot, especially for unknown authors. Or I wouldn't even say I'm an unknown author, because I didn't even think of being an author ever in my whole life. I never thought I would write a book one day, right? So I would say it's weird to be approached by a book publisher when you've never put anything out there. They've never seen your writing. And then they say, we want to offer you a contract to write a book. That's what happened to me. It's like it's like being approached by a music record label, and they say we want to give you a music deal, but they've never heard you sing. Right?
So they haven't even, obviously you haven't written something before, but it just came out of the blue, just like that.
Yeah, kind of. So it's some serendipitous moments happened. So I was asked to give a talk by a friend of mine that I met in business school. She said she has a client for Youth Month. She has a talk that she needs to coordinate and facilitate or deliver. And I said, yes, I will do it. So she asked me if I would give the talk. All I had was youth. So there's a third business we didn't talk about that I run, which is Diski 99. It's a sports NGO.
Okay.
And we do soccer and netball for young kids in Soweto, and we've now grown into Lakeview informal settlements near Ennerdale in the south of Joburg. And so we've been running this organization for 10 years now. We turned 10 this year. And I love working with young people. So when my friend said Youth Month, all I heard was, I assumed I would be talking to young people. It turned out that wasn't the case. It just happened to be a talk that happened to happen in Youth Month. But the audience was executives of, this organization. The organization actually turned out to be Media 24. I didn't know that. So I spoke to executives and middle management, junior management, and interns. So it was a leadership program that the business had set up. I gave the talk. I spoke about imposter syndrome. And I think the talk went well, because 2 weeks after that, I was then approached. So a commissioning editor of NB Publishers, which is a unit within Media 24, reached out to me and said, hey, a friend of mine spoke about you. She was in the talk that you gave. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And I said, 100% no. Like, I've never thought about writing a book. Why would I think about writing a book? And I think, my response is a reflection of what happens when people are first generation anything, right? Sometimes there will be opportunities that come your way that you might dismiss and not entertain. Certainly these people see something in you, but you don't see it in yourself. And you might not see it in yourself because you have not even seen it in anyone around you. I do not know anyone in my whole family who's written a book, right? So how would I think we write books in my family?
Yeah.
So I said no. But then Mbali, her name is Mbali, my commissioning editor, is brilliant at her job. She was looking for new voices in business, people who would write a business book. She was also looking for people who are in the process. So she wasn't looking for someone who's made it, so to speak, who's at the end of their life. They've built really hyper successful businesses, and she wants someone to write a book and teach people about how I became a billionaire, you know?
Yeah.
I think there's many books like that. She just wanted someone who's in the struggle, just like you. Right now, you are building your own business. She wanted someone who would write about what it's like,
Yes.
you know, in the trenches. So yeah, after a call, a couple of discussions, I said, yes, I'll write the book. And then I signed a contract. And for 1 year, I wrote nothing. Not a single word. I was too scared.
How do the contracts work? You have to finish it within a certain...
Yeah, I mean, you get a contract, it has a deadline. There's a lot that comes that I didn't understand also that is tied to that deadline. So the publisher has to start selling the book to bookstores.
Within a time frame.
The bookstores have to commit to buying it. So it means at a particular stage, the publisher has to speak to printers and secure space in their schedules to print the books, because they have to be delivered at bookstores by a certain date. So if you work backwards, the publisher then has to help secure time with editors, right? And book cover designers and page designers. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scene that I didn't know. I didn't even know there was someone called a page designer who designs how the page looks, right? I just assumed.
Besides words on it, how else can it?
You know, like, no, there's a design.
Okay.
There's a design, there's a page designer. So the date on the contract is an important date because there
so
are
many other different
domino effects if you miss the date.
Yes.
But I missed the date. A whole year, right? And one day I really battled to put this book out. I struggled a lot. I struggled a lot with imposter syndrome. I struggled a lot with believing that I can do this, I can write, I can put this product out there, that my life is interesting for someone to want to read about it, because I just thought, like, who would want to read my book, you know? I'm not special in any way. So there was a lot of self-doubt I had to fight. And one day I picked up the call and I wanted to tell Mbali that I'm giving up. Sorry, I can't do this. Again, Mbali is brilliant. During that call, after I hung up, I felt this sense that I can't let her down. Like, this person believes in me so much. I need to do my best and try. And so the book is out.
Okay.
It's done. I'm glad it's done. A whole
At
weight.
last.
Like, I feel like...
I love the page design.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of angst is now like, I don't have it anymore.
Yeah. You mentioned that I'm obviously starting my own business now. And in your book, you mentioned, I think it's a Japanese term, karoshi, which is death by overwork. So I know when you start your own business, you want to put in that work, put in that effort. So from your sort of, how long have you been an entrepreneur now? 8 years?
8 years.
8 years now.
8 years full time.
Yeah.
And then I'd say 10 years because I started Disky 99 whilst employed.
Oh, okay. While you were at that.
Yeah, so I'd say 10 years, 2 years of side hustle, and then 8 years of full time.
All right. So if there's one thing that could prevent death from overwork, or something that you've learned? Maybe you've probably almost reached that stage where, you know what, I'm overworked. I don't want to do this anymore. Is there anything that you can share with people like myself or people that are starting their own businesses?
I can't remember the name of the artist, but this one artist said that periods where you don't do anything, periods where you are unproductive and you're idle and you're bored, those periods are actually part of work, right? And I think hustle culture tells us that you can't have those periods. You can't sit and be idle and just not do anything and rest and recuperate. You must be like working 16-hour days. Sleep is for the dead. You know, those type of conversation. And I think I'm starting to also realize it now. Downtime is as good as go time, right? Like, you have to make space to rest. As hard as sometimes that sounds, I think it's the most important thing in business when you're building your business. Because if you are unproductive, if you are burnt out, I mean, I'm sure you've been burnt out. I've been burnt out many times. The amount of time it takes you to come back and recover is long. You know, like I've had moments where I just could not even bring myself to type an email. I know what I need to say to respond to this email, but I have zero energy to just type it out. It feels like a lot of work to just type out an email. So I would say, you know, to avoid death by overwork, make it a priority to rest. See rest as part of you sending an email or you having a meeting, or, you know, sleep. I struggle to get good sleep, but I also know like those habits that you do before you go to bed, or trying to get enough sleep. I don't know what it is for you. For me, I think 6 hours is good. If I can get more than 6 hours, even better. But I know if I have less than 6 hours of sleep, it's a slog the next day.
Yeah.
So yeah, those basic things, but rest as much as you can.
That's good advice. I noticed that when I rest, like these new different ideas come to you, or the way of solving something that you would have thought would have been an easier way. You know, when you take that rest and actually think about certain things. Yeah, I do agree with you that planning for rest when you're starting a business, although you seem like you're wasting time or it's going to be delayed.
No, I mean, the hustle culture tells you that you have to hustle. You have to hustle. You have to be in the streets all the time. You have to be talking to clients all the time. You can't, you know. And sure, I think I agree. There is definitely a big aspect of building a business that has to do with how hard you work. We can't dismiss that. Like, you have to work twice, 3 times as hard as someone who's in corporate, I think, because there is absolutely no guarantee at the end of your month of the month that you're gonna get paid, right? Unless you really have delivered work to a customer, you've chased the customer, you have more than one customer, you know, like you sent out multiple invoices.
Yes.
Then you can be like, okay, there's certainly gonna be money coming in. But when I was in corporate, you know, there would be moments where you just know, like, end of the month, you're gonna get paid regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless, right? So hard work is, I can't dismiss that, but I also don't wanna have a situation where work kills me. It's yeah. I don't think that's the way to live.
No, definitely. Did you travel to Japan?
No, I've not.
Okay.
It's in my bucket list.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you can tell them about the term that you learned.
Sure.
And so what next for Raymond now? I mean, you've got your book, got your businesses. Are you planning to make a movie about yourself? Maybe a movie studio will approach you and say, hey,
hey man,
make a documentary.
You never know.
Yeah.
I think one thing I'm learning is like you just have to be open-minded to opportunities, because you don't know where one thing often leads to another. Steve Jobs says you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards, right? Mm-hmm. So, our friend is back. Yeah, so what's next? I think is to continue the work that I'm doing. I really want to make a big dent in the creative space. I like this idea of specializing and being the bridge between the creative and tech space with the finance space. I think there's lots of work that could be done there to design products that make sense for both parties. The financiers want to make money. They don't think like, grant makers or NGOs. I know a lot of businesses in the creative space that say, if we have these, resources, we will make money and we will pay back and we will give a return. We're not asking for aid. We're not asking for grants. But we need patient capital, right?
Yeah.
Because what we do takes time, and that's often the missing piece, I think. The appreciation that great things take time to build, especially in our space. So I'm hoping that I would be able to bridge that gap. And hopefully in a couple of years' time, I'll be back and telling you how this financial instrument of design works.
You'll be back with the sequel to your next book.
Maybe that's the next
thing,
that's what my next book is about.
Yeah. No, cool, man. Thank you for sharing your story. I mean, I feel like I've known you since you were a kid now. I mean, sharing your story, sharing your experiences. And one of the reasons I started this podcast is, as much as we as entrepreneurs, businesses, you do business as a business with another business, but it's actually people doing business with other people. So I think that if you loved Raymond's story, those that are watching the podcast and you know where he comes from, you know what he's been through, and you can relate or resonate with it, I mean, you can definitely reach out to Raymond, and maybe he'll put you in his next book after he's got your built your relationship with you. And but thanks so much, Raymond, for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.